Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Evolved Emily Show. I'm your host, Emily Hayden, and I could not be more excited for today's episode. It is with one of my nearest and dearest friends. Her name is Gina Scafoglio, and her and I became really close last year when we ended up living together for a couple of months, and that time together really showed me the value of female friendship. If you are a girl that feels like you're a tomboy and you always relate to the boys and it's just easier to get along with them, and you have not yet experienced the value of sisterhood and female friendship, or if you're somebody that has been really hurt by sisters in the past or female friendship in general, I would really encourage you to do some healing in that way and open yourself up to some female friendships, hopefully people that align with you, have similar core values, are on a similar mission as you, because my life has just been so blessed by friendships and especially female friendships like the one that I have with Gina. So truly, it's just one of my most treasured relationships that I have. I look up to her so much. I respect her. She's such an incredible human being. She has an amazing business. She really lives a life of excellence and dedication. She has grown so much. Like, this girl has evolved every single year, and it's been really beautiful to witness that and then to get really close to her within this last year or so. She is an IFBB Bikini Pro. She has a coaching business and she has a podcast as well. So make sure to check that out because I was actually on her podcast, which was fun. And in today's episode, we got really deep. We actually got a lot deeper than I thought we were going to be for some reason, but we get really deep into the topic of forgiveness. And I find that this is a topic that people sometimes want to avoid because they don't want to have to forgive, or maybe they're not ready for that yet. I would encourage you just to listen to this conversation with an open heart and open ears, open mind, and an open heart, because we both have experienced such deepening levels of forgiveness. And the result of that has been that it's truly just set our soul free. So what's on the other end of forgiveness is soul freedom. We got into things like the victim mentality, how to take ownership for your life, and how sometimes the most empowering thing that you can realize is that no one is coming to save you. You have to get up and you have to save you. You have to do it for you. So get ready for just a really beautiful conversation between two friends who really get to reflect on the lessons that we've learned, the things that we've gone through, and the things that have really helped us evolve in our lives. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you do, please do me a favor and tag me on your Instagram stories, tag Gina as well. Let us know what you thought of it. You can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Subscribe if you're watching here on YouTube. And I'll see you guys for today's episode. Thanks so much. Gina, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
That was so cute. What was that? Thanks.
I think it was more of a sassy.
Yeah.
I'm back.
It's been 2 years.
Has it been 2 years?
It's been 2 years.
Did you check?
I checked and I actually re-listened to that episode.
I hated that episode.
Wait, you hated it?
I said like every other word. I think it was nervous.
I kind of did as well.
Did you?
I was looking back and really realized that. But when I watched the episode, I think I expected to see, I hope it doesn't come across wrong, but almost like more of a transformation. Like, I thought that we were both so much more unconscious than we actually were. Actually, looking back, I was so proud of both of us.
Yeah.
And especially you. Like, I look back and think, wow, I have a lot of respect for you and who you are and everything that you shared. It made me respect you more watching that old episode.
Really?
Yeah. And it's wild because you and I weren't even like close back then.
That was how we got to know each other. We didn't know each other at all.
At all?
No.
Well, oh, that's right. I had just seen you compete in Dallas.
So I was thinking about this while I was driving over here, and I was just thinking about how we met and the 4 agreements. One of the agreements is never make assumptions.
Yeah.
And we both made assumptions that day.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. So it was at my show, 2020. Yeah. The Battle of Texas 2020. And I remember, I knew who you were. I followed Alphalete. I also, you judged me at Summer Shredding. So, and I followed your YouTube. I knew you had a podcast. So I knew who you were. I kind of had you up on a little pedestal, which was funny looking at it now, you know. Yeah. And I remember you came backstage and you introduced yourself, and I was like, oh my God, Emily Hayden.
Which is so funny because I had no idea that you knew who I was.
Right.
And I also kind of thought you hated me.
That's what I'm thinking about. I assumed you didn't know who I was and that you didn't think anything of me, whatever. And then you assumed that I didn't like you because my energy was probably weird.
Your energy was just kind of like, okay. And I was like, fuck. Yeah, no worries. Okay. I just, wanted to let you know you look great.
Damn. I think I get in the zone.
Totally.
I do. I get in the zone, and I realized that competing because I would follow a bunch of girls on Instagram. So if I was doing, let's say it was the Summer Shredding Classic, I would look up hashtag Summer Shredding Classic, and I would go and I would follow all of the girls who were competing in that year that were prepping, and I would follow their preps so I could compare. And then I'd be like, her glutes are bigger than mine. Oh, I got to work on my glutes. So I'd use it in a good way.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Some people compare and they bring themselves down, and I just kind of use it to fuel me. And so, yeah, I would make friends with the girls on Instagram. And then when it actually came show day, I would just be so internalizing everything that I wouldn't talk to them. And I think I came off probably in that way.
Well, to be fair, you were kind. Like, you weren't unkind by any means, but I definitely didn't think that you knew who I was or had known about me or anything like that.
That's so funny. So we met then. Yeah. And then I don't know if we met again before you had me on your show.
Really?
Yeah. You just invited me on your show. I was like, okay, cool. I guess I'm something. Aww. I'm cool enough to be on Emily Hayden's show now. I know.
I love that. Well, you have had, and we both have had a ton of growth since then, but it is just kind of cool to reflect and look back and see that we were already on the path. You were already sharing a lot of your daily habits, your reading and your journaling. You were sharing some books that you really enjoyed back then. Oh, yeah. So I would love an update. Do you have anything that is new to your daily routine in addition to reading and journaling and walks? Do you have anything new, or how has your routine evolved since then?
Yeah. So I probably had a lot of resistance towards meditation at that time, or I didn't understand it. And
I think I almost remember you saying that too.
Yeah, I remember had it on a vision board. Successfully meditate.
Successfully meditate on a vision board?
Yeah.
That is so cute. You can successfully meditate anytime.
But I didn't know. I didn't know. And my friend Allie Vaith, she really started getting into that space. We had already been friends. And then she started really getting into that space. And I remember talking to her about it, and she came over, and that's when I was going through like the big breakup. And I remember she was she came stay the night. We were laying in bed in the morning, and she's like, do you want to do a meditation? I was like, okay. And I was talking to her about it. I was like, I can't quiet my mind. She's like, that's normal. Yeah. You're a human with a brain. You can't just flip off a switch like a light bulb. It's normal to have thoughts. That's part of meditation. You just redirect your thoughts back to your anchor, your breath, or the stillness, or the music. I was like, oh, okay. And then the other thing that I was really struggling with was sitting still, because I thought I had to sit perfectly still. Aww. And that idea that I created of sitting in perfect stillness, I would start creating these stories in my mind. And I would be like, oh, my head itches. Oh my God, what if there's a bug in my head? What if there's a bug in my hair? And I would have to itch it. Wow. And then I would feel something on my skin. Yeah, I would think, Gina, you're just coming up with these distractions. But what if there actually is a bug on you?
The mind's amazing.
She's like, you can move around. Yeah. I was like, well, my back and my hips start hurting. She's like, you can lay down. Yeah. So she took me through one of my first successful meditations was the Hawaiian, the
Ho'oponopono.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my first one. Yeah. And I remember it was a 30-minute meditation, and I cried, and I was like, I can cross it off my vision board.
Oh my gosh. Done. Next thing. So, okay, let's talk about Ho'oponopono a little bit. Yeah. So that is from the Hawaiian culture, and it's a way for reconciliation and forgiveness. And I really adopted that into my life as a consistent practice for myself and also for others. And it's 4 phrases, and it's please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you. And so it's being able to be in a deep state of meditation, and you can say each one of those very slowly and with a lot of intention, and you can bring one person to mind if you'd like. And so for me, and sometimes that person is yourself.
Yeah.
Like you can
a lot of times.
Yeah. So you can bring yourself to mind. You could bring maybe someone else that you have bitterness or resentment or unforgiveness with. You could bring them to mind, and people may say, like, why would you want to spend time forgiving somebody that did something wrong to you?
It's for you.
And centering the judgment. But yeah, would you speak a little bit on that process and forgiveness in general?
Wow. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this, the tattoo on my back, that was my very first tattoo. It's forgiveness is the ultimate sacrifice.
I just got chills.
Yeah. Wow. And I got that from my dad, and he passed away when I was very young, and I had some resentment towards him. And yeah, when you forgive someone, it's not for them. It's for you, because anytime you're holding hate in your heart, or even if it's not as strong as hate, maybe it's just you're, being unsettled about something, or resentment or bitterness, or something as powerful as anger. That's emotion that you're storing inside your body. And that can manifest in so many different ways. And that might just manifest as general anxiety every day. And you don't know why you have anxiety. You think, everyone has anxiety. I don't have stored trauma. My childhood was fine. A lot of people have that story. I remember just hearing that on one of your podcasts. And so, or even if you did have a rough childhood, or you feel like you handled the trauma that you've been through, or the experiences that you've been through with grace, I think a lot of times, unless we do go through some healing and some forgiveness, we store that inside of us and we don't even realize it.
That's so good. And there was this guy actually that he did this study where he went to this mental asylum. And in this mental asylum, it was really violent. The people that were there had violent outbursts, and it was just a really negative situation. And so he went into the file cabinet, and he would read the file of each person that was in there.
Yeah.
And he didn't even talk to them, but he did the ho'oponopono, like expressing forgiveness for these people, for their actions, for anything they may have been involved in. He never spoke to any of the people. And I forget the data. I'll try to find the link to the study and put it in the show notes maybe. But I forget how much later it was, if it was a couple months or a year. But the entire asylum changed from this negative, violent situation to a more positive, a good situation, without ever having talking to any of them. And they weren't even the ones that did the forgiveness.
Whoa.
Which is just, it blows my mind on so many levels.
Yeah.
And I know for myself in my own journey, forgiveness is now my first step. So when people ask, what's your first step to healing? It's not okay, let me get over and forget. It's let me actually feel all of this so that I can move through my process of forgiving. Have you had anything in your life that has been harder to forgive, that has been more of a process? And if so, what was that like? Because I can imagine people listening thinking, okay, so I just forgive and it's done. But sometimes it's more than that.
Yeah, there's actually 2 relationships that really took a toll on me. And I was very unconscious through both of them. And so there's the second one, there's definitely more accountability on my end, but there was just so much pain, and I placed that pain on them. They did something to me. They wronged me. The first one was abuse, and I really held on to that story. I had that victim mentality to begin with. And I was in my darkest era of life. And so moving through that experience, first I just buried it. After that relationship, didn't go to therapy, didn't work with mentors, didn't talk to, I would talk about it in the victimhood sense, but I never worked through anything. And that ended up really taking a toll on the following relationship. And then when that relationship ended, that one broke my heart. That one wasn't, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't wrong me, but just him ending it. That was where all of the pain came from. And that pain again, I placed on him. And there was some forgiveness that I needed to have for myself. But I think both of those, there's still more forgiving to do.
Wow. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's such a big lesson to know that there's always deepening layers to every lesson, every wound that we go through. And I think sometimes people get down on themselves because they think, oh, I've already forgiven this. I've already healed this. Why is it coming up again? And in my experience, it's because, number one, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So when you're ready for a certain level of forgiveness, it appears. And I believe that God, the universe, source, universal intelligence is so smart and so kind that it doesn't give us more than what we can handle. So I think if we were given the varying levels of forgiveness all at once and our heart is like really not ready for that, we wouldn't be able to handle everything that surfaced. So I think it's a gift that we get it in these little layers.
This is kind of dark.
Okay.
But this is where my thought process went as you were explaining that. So I've had multiple people in my family now take their life. And so how would you apply that to those situations? Like they weren't able to handle that, you know?
How would I apply me forgiving them?
No, the universe only gives you what you can handle. Yeah. And I'm sure I've been in that space where I was like, I don't know if I can handle anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way that I think about it, because I've been in that place before.
Yeah.
And that place for me was I just wanted the pain to end.
Right.
And I didn't see a way out of the pain.
Right.
And so because I didn't see a way out of the pain, I was getting to the point where I just wanted the pain to end. And so I feel like I can understand maybe a portion of the people that do something like that. I'm really thankful that I didn't take action. And I feel like it very well could have been me. But I feel like also because of my level of consciousness, there was a voice that came through. And whether that was my higher self, it was God, it was whatever you want to believe, there was something else that came through that I allowed to come through. And I think that if people are in a very, very unconscious state and they may be utilizing substances like drugs and alcohol, and
that was definitely part of most of it. Yeah.
It's really hard to be receptive to get any sort of like universal assistance or divine assistance. And again, this is just my thoughts on it. I don't know is the right answer. I don't know. But that's just kind of how I'm feeling about it, is that when you're so unconscious, it's really hard. Like I actually thought about that for myself and I was like, wow, like all the pain that I was feeling. And this is why it's like, had I felt that a decade earlier, I may have
taken action. Yeah.
And with where I was at now, there were certain things that were just off limits for me with my level of consciousness. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure. The substances, I don't know why it didn't even come into my thought process, but yeah, it definitely is going to block.
Yeah. And when we think about substances, we think about drugs and alcohol, but substances could literally just be anything that is blocking your mind from being a clear vessel and having a clear state. Like at that level, it could even just be toxins, like environmental toxins or hormones and antibiotics and all the things that's in our food system and the things that we touch. Like our bodies are these energetic bodies. We're not just physical bodies. So imagine somebody that's in a very low vibrational state and they constantly fill themselves with low vibrational things that they're eating, drinking, seeing, the people that they're around, the hardship, the trauma that they go through in life, like getting chills just thinking about it. Like, of course, they feel like they have no other way out. So I feel like in order to help, slowly helping people awaken to themselves, to their truest essence, is the way to help them realize who and what they are. I feel like when people really remember what they actually are, divinity, it's like you get excited to be here again. You know?
And you can find that through meditation. You can find that through stillness. So I can't say it again.
Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono.
Ho'opono.
You a ho'oponopono. Okay.
Kind of, yeah. Kind of.
So
that would be Gina's way to remember it. Oh,
Yes.
goodness. We really apologize to any Hawaiians that are listening. That may have that might have been a little offensive.
My bad.
I usually, I don't worry about offending people, but that might be
You're
little
right.
offensive.
Yeah. I just speak.
No, it's okay. They have a good sense of humor.
All right.
Yeah.
So yes, that meditation was like that was my first successful meditation.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that Allie played for me, she had, the speaker, the facilitator is a woman. She had you bring people on a stage. So I had a visual, and it was funny because I had visualized my high school stage.
That's cute.
In our little theater or whatever.
Yeah.
And I brought on people that I thought were my friends that weren't there for me, or fake friends. I brought on my past partners. I brought on my father. So I brought on everyone.
In that whole meditation, you went in.
And I don't think I don't know if I got through everyone.
Yeah.
But it was person by person where I thought about who I was having the most anger towards or resentment towards. Who hurt me the most? That was the thought process I had at the time. Who hurt me the most? And I brought them on stage, and I spoke to them what I needed to say. And then I said, I forgive you. And then the last person I brought on was me.
Wow.
And I forgave myself for experiencing everything that I experienced and my part in it. Yeah, but that was very powerful. I forgot about that until just now.
That is so powerful. And I love that you were doing that years ago. I have to share one story on forgiveness for me. I went to Yosemite National Park, and part of that was because one of my best guy friends in LA, Josh, he actually died there. And I had always wanted to see where that was because it was one of his favorite places. And I remember driving up, and it was like the most beautiful view ever.
Yeah.
I got emotional just witnessing the view, and I started laughing, and I was like, of course he would go from here. Like, this is the most epic place ever. Like, it just makes sense. He was this gypsy, And so part of it was for that and going and seeing this beautiful place. And then the other reason why I wanted to go is because I wanted to create a container for me to go into the next level of forgiveness for someone that was they were like a primary person in my life that had really deeply hurt me. And my process for that, I did something that was so powerful, and that's why I want to share it with everyone, is I first wrote a letter, and this person was a part of my childhood as well. And so I wrote a letter from the childhood version of me.
I remember this.
I channeled the child version of me, and it was wild because I thought I would just kind of write through the letter, but I wrote the first word, the first sentence, and literally just broke down crying. And the first word was why. And imagine a little kid that's just why? And the next one was how, and I went through that whole letter. I expressed myself fully as a child. I really channeled that version of me, and I held her and I let her cry. And then I took some deep breaths, and I kind of shaked it out a little bit. And then I said, okay, woman to woman, here we go. And I wrote the letter as the woman version of me.
Wow.
And it was really empowering to say everything that I had to say now. And these are conversations that can't happen in the real world for me.
Yeah.
So I had to do it all on my own. And mind you, I'm in a camper van in the middle of nowhere in the forest by myself, bawling, crying. It was kind of comical. I was like, you were made for this. You literally intentionally are doing this. You could just be frolicking in the forest and you're facing trauma. Right. But so I wrote that letter from myself to this person. And then I was almost going to finish. And then I had this idea. I should bring up in my mind's eye in a meditation, the highest version of this person, their highest divine essence in the spirit realm, not even look at them here in the 3D, but bring up their divine essence. And so in meditation, I did that. And then I started writing as if it was her speaking to me. And that was the easiest letter to write. Wow. I started writing, and it's I couldn't write fast enough to keep up with the message that was coming through. And it was it wasn't just everything that I needed to hear. I would have never written like that. like the way that it just so clearly came through me, it's like
channeling.
It's like I knew what her divine essence, her like highest version of herself would say to me right now. And it's like, I've imagined it as like the healed version of me and the healed version of her, who were spirits up there that knew this was going to happen, them having a conversation. And like, that was the most healing letter that I've ever experienced. And after I wrote it all out, I read it and I could even like hear it in her voice. And it was the most beautiful healing experience for me. And afterwards I made some s'mores and went on the campfire with the dogs and, you know, had a great rest of the trip. But I just know that for me, when I've chosen to face things like that, and I've done that in intimate partners and relationship kind of ways as well, even if I can't have the conversation in person, it actually still provides me with the healing that I need.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it was really dope.
I thought you were actually going to go a different direction when you were thinking of her highest divine self. And I thought you were just going to say, I forgave that. I forgave her. And that allowed me to forgive her, versus thinking of all of the lowest versions that I experienced. And I'm not sure if that would be, I don't think it would necessarily be better or worse, but I thought about like my previous partners where I felt like I truly connected to their soul. On a soul level, we had a connection, and I saw them for who they really were, but they were they operated through their ego, and they weren't operating through their highest self. And that the ego is, you know, what caused the pain and what caused the turmoil. And yeah, so I'm just kind of thinking about how I can think about that.
So I love that you're bringing this up, because I think a lot of women do this, where I'm the same. I've always been able to see their truest essence and who they are. And I've had similar experiences where I connected at like such a deep soul level with these people. And one thing that I've realized is that people are not who you see them as. They are who they choose to be and who they show up as in their actions to you.
Yes.
And that's been like the hardest thing for me to recognize, because I definitely used to hold out for the hope that they would heal into the version that I always saw.
Yeah.
And that thought process had me staying in places that were actually harmful to me emotionally and just caused more pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And so I think the healed perspective on that is being able to really accept people for where they're at.
Exactly how they are.
Exactly how they are.
Exactly who they are right now.
Yeah. And accept doesn't mean that you stay. Accept just says, okay, I see this and I accept it for what it is. And the most loving thing that you can do sometimes is walk away. And some people don't understand that. They think that love would stay, but that's not true. I think the most loving thing you can do, especially when you're on such different pages when it comes to your healing journey and, you know, how conscious you're able to be and how you're able to communicate. I think the most loving thing that you can do is walk away to allow people to have their own process.
Otherwise, you're enabling them by staying in a way. And I think this can be, the verbiage could be misconstrued, but in a way, by staying, you're saying, I accept you exactly how you are. Even though you might verbally say, hey, this is not okay. Your actions or your behavior is not acceptable. By you staying, you're actually saying, this is acceptable.
Yeah.
And that enables the behavior and it doesn't allow them to grow. And I think a lot of people's ignition to start this healing journey is sometimes through pain or loss of a loved one or a romantic partner. And yeah, so there might be pain associated with walking away, but it also could be the start of a beautiful journey for them.
Yeah, which I always hope for, you know.
Yeah.
There's not one person in my life that I've loved that I don't still love to this day. Like still love and have respect for and that's why forgiveness has been such a big piece for me, because I have experienced a lot of things that were very hurtful on so many levels. And it took me a long time to come to a true place of forgiveness.
Yeah.
But I know that forgiveness, like we mentioned in the beginning, is really for you, and it's for the freedom of your own soul. Mm-hmm. And I believe that in an energetic way, I believe it positively impacts the other person too.
Yeah. And when I think forgiveness is the ultimate sacrifice, when I got it, I was 18. So I was very unconscious. And I actually it was on my 18th birthday, I believe. So I was making these decisions at 17. Very, very not, where I am today.
I mean, I think it's a great tattoo though.
It is.
You did well.
But it meant something different at the time. It was more of just that initial layer of, if I forgive you, it's for me. That I'm sacrificing something. But now it's almost, to me, forgiveness is sacrificing the victim mentality.
So good.
You have to let go of the ego and the victim mentality of, you did something to me, so it's right for me to stay mad at you, or you don't deserve my forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it's keeping you in a place of not being your best self. And you have to let go of that identity and that attachment of rightfulness to be able to forgive.
Okay. So you've brought up victim mentality a few times. What has helped you break out of the victim mentality? And maybe before you get into that, what are maybe some signs or symptoms that somebody is stuck in a victim mentality?
I think we could start with the everyday surface level first layer of victim mentality that I really experienced, and I didn't realize it until looking back, of course. But if you catch yourself saying phrases like, great, now this, another thing, everything happens to me, when it rains it pours, of course this would happen. Now this again, so just thinking about something as simple as you spill milk, or you're late to work, or you get an fender bender. It's always something happening to you and feeling like you can't catch a break. I can't catch a break. That's probably the most common victim mentality phrase that I hear.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I can't catch a break. So, and that was my catchphrase for years. What helped me break through it? It's not funny, but it's
okay. I'm like, why are we nervous?
No, it's. I think about our dark humor.
Yeah.
Also, what's appropriate for the podcast, what's not appropriate for the podcast.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So what helped me break out of the victim mentality was I was in my darkest, dark of the dark era of my life. And I finally got to the place where I was like, I need help. If I don't get help, this is not going to end well. This is just going to end. And so I was in college, and part of our tuition pays for 10 therapy sessions. So I go, okay. I went to the mental health part of the school, booked a therapy session, and I went to my first therapy session, and I realized very shortly that he was new. And it was most likely grad students, right? That were
doing it for free.
And they're just getting into it. And bless this guy's heart, he looked terrified.
Oh, at what you shared.
Yeah, I walked in and I had 2 black eyes, a broken nose. It was my mom is not doing well. My father has committed suicide. I'm in an abusive relationship. He just broke my best friend's jaw. He's in jail. I want to die. And he just looked terrified. He didn't know what to do. Didn't know what to say. Poor guy. Yeah. He was like, how do you feel about that? The typical.
Did he really say that?
I'm not shitting you.
Yeah, it's not funny. I'm sorry, but that's kind of funny.
It's kind of funny. Well, even at the time, I was like, is this a fucking joke?
Yeah.
Is this a joke?
Yeah. It's funny that you had that experience at my lowest moment. I had a similar experience when I talked to a regular therapist.
And they just looked scared.
Oh, they looked terrified.
Like, how do I help this person? What do I do? What do I say? And I unloaded, very first session, I just unloaded on him. He didn't know what to say. He's like, how do you feel about that? I was like, fucking awful. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And so I walked away from that first session and I was very disappointed. I was like, maybe it's just the first session. Maybe it was supposed to be an intro session, just getting to know. Maybe he's not supposed to give me advice yet or whatever. So I went back and same thing. Very disappointed. I felt like there was no guidance, zero guidance. And I think I went back for a third session. And I remember walking home on campus from that third session and I was pissed. I was actually angry. I was like, what the fuck? Why can no one help me? Why can no one help me? And I was aware of my thoughts at the time. And I wasn't conscious on the level that we speak of consciousness now, but I was aware of my thoughts at the time. And so I was like, why can't anyone help me? Why can't anyone help me? And then it ding, light bulb. No one can help you, Gina. You have to help you. You're the only one that can do it. And looking back, I'm like, duh, of course. But at that point, I really didn't know. I did not know.
I love that you're sharing this because I also had a similar point in my journey. At my very lowest moment, I got to this place where all of a sudden this phrase came in, and I swear it's the phrase that saved my life. It said, no one is coming to save you. You have to save you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, no one's coming to help you. You have to help you. You have to fix you. And that day, that moment was just the start of going back up. It was a very long, slow process. It wasn't where I just immediately felt better, but it did provide me that initial ownership of everything that is you're experiencing in your life is on you and only you can fix it. That immediate ownership gave me relief.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
because it shows you how much power you actually have.
Yeah. So it's not about blame. Whenever I think when I first started figuring out what the victim mentality was, it's not about blaming yourself, but it's about owning up to everything in your experience from birth to death, no matter how hard or painful it is, somehow is on you. Yeah. And
well, because we choose what we experience in our lives, right? And when something happens, and when something happens that we don't desire to experience, it's our responsibility to walk away, to remove ourselves, to not repeat that same thing. I remember when I was still becoming more and more conscious, this therapist asked me one time when I was in a really emotional, volatile relationship that it's like, no matter what I did, I couldn't like help this relationship. And my therapist said, you don't see your part in this? And I said, no, please tell me. That's why I'm here. Like, I'm the most self-aware person. I could give you a list of all my faults and failures, and I could not see like how I'm creating part of this problem. And he said, you keep choosing to stay.
Yeah.
He's like, if you continue to stay, you further perpetuate your suffering and the suffering of the other person in this relationship. And if you walk away, the pain and the suffering, while it feels like a loss initially, it'll end. And when I saw that pathway forward, I finally saw a pathway forward out of the pain and the suffering. It just wasn't the pathway that I wanted because I was in love. I didn't want to let go.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a therapist did help you.
That was actually a very different one. He was more of a healer. It wasn't like I haven't had the best experiences with regular therapists.
I haven't either.
And granted, I haven't had too many of them, but I would say like I think 3 or so I didn't enjoy and didn't have great experiences with. I think one was just neither here nor there. We didn't really get anywhere, but it wasn't bad. And then I had 2 that were just not great experiences. And then any like healer, mentor, other categories, I've had like incredible experiences with.
Yeah.
I mean, even Grant and Celeste, I worked with them for 7 months straight out of the darkest time of my life into literally a rebirth of who I am as a human being. Like I went from death to life.
Yeah.
Here's my dark humor for everyone. I used to call my payment to them every single month because it wasn't an easy payment to make. I called it my rent on earth.
Fuck yeah, I remember you telling me that.
I was like, here's my rent on earth. Because at the time, like, I really had to heal through some things.
Well, that was all you had. You were like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to live how I normally live. Barely. I mean, I'll survive off of what I have left, but here you go. Here's what I have. Yeah.
Yeah. I spent everything that I had on my healing at that time because I had no other option at that point.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I with Grant and Celeste, they're fucking awesome.
I know.
My consultation call with them, it was a consultation call. I completely redid the whole infrastructure of my business. And I looked at the way that they looked at each other. And that reminded me of what love actually looks like. And I hadn't looked at someone like that in years. And I saw that. And I remembered. I was like, I don't look at my partner like that. And I don't think I ever have. And I ended that relationship.
Oh my gosh.
So I changed my business completely.
Yeah.
And I also realized that I wanted to stay in San Diego because they were having me visualize my vision for the future. That was the consultation call. You're a visionary. Let's create a vision. And in my vision, I was like, I'm exactly where I am now, but it's not with him and it's not doing what I'm doing.
Whoa.
So that's the power to me. Whether it's a therapist or a mentor or a healer,
or
a coach, where I really gauge how beneficial or therapeutic or helpful it is how many breakthroughs you have. And I had 3 major breakthroughs on a consultation call.
So good. I do have to say, because I had calls with them every single week, and I had some calls where it was like that, and it was like so many breakthroughs in one call.
And then
then I had some where it was like, it was obviously a really beneficial call, but it seemed in the moment, and I tell my clients this now all the time when I'm working with my own clients, these suggestions that I'm giving you might seem insignificant, but if you actually do them over a longer period of time, it's going to have a significant impact on your life. So I look at some of those, calls where they were good, they were helpful, but they weren't like these crazy big breakthroughs.
Right.
And yet the little practices that they would recommend, or this little like one phrase that would stick out from the call that like really made me think about how to live life differently. When I look at like the trajectory of the 7 months altogether, I'm really able to see all those little moments that I felt weren't these like fireworks moments. They were actually just building the foundation.
Yeah, that's true. And it also depends on how open you are to receiving feedback or just change in general. Because I feel like both of us, when we're working with these mentors, we're definitely in a space where we're like, fix me, help me, I'll do anything, I'll try anything, So I think if there's a lot of resistance towards whoever you're working with, you might not experience those big breakthroughs immediately. It might take some time. But also a breakthrough doesn't have to be changing the trajectory of your life in that moment, but it could be just a perspective shift.
Totally.
So I was working with a client yesterday, and she was identifying as someone who loses control with food. And I think a lot of people feel like they lose control and they binge, or they do something crazy and they feel like, oh, I've flew off the rails. And I was talking to her about systems. Do you have systems in place for stress management? Because when she's emotional, she goes to food. Like, okay, well, right now you don't have any other systems. You don't have any other modalities. You exercise, but you're not exercising through your pain and your emotions. There's no reading, journaling, meditation, going outside, grounding, breathing. And so if you don't have any systems in place, when you eat food, it lowers your cortisol, it spikes your dopamine, and it gives you serotonin. So that is a system. That's not you losing control. That's you being a human being choosing to feel good over suffering because you have no other systems in place.
So good.
And her whole demeanor just shifted.
Yeah.
Everything shifted. And to me, that was like, even if her actions don't immediately change, even if her lifestyle doesn't immediately change, it was a perspective shift that over time will help her change her life. To me, that's a breakthrough.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's so empowering because you're giving her the education of what's actually happening at a deepening layer so she can be empowered to put a new system in place. That made me think about a phrase that Grant and Celeste said in one of our calls, and it was, "You deserve to feel good." And it was something that was so simple.
That one stuck with me too.
Yeah.
And I remember bringing it to my clients. Like, I still do. Yeah, you can allow yourself to feel good because you're going to do those things anyways, but you're going to do it with shame and guilt. Whether it's watching the Netflix episode or texting the guy back that you, whatever, or it could be scrolling on TikTok. We end up doing those things anyways. So let's remove this shame and guilt. And when we do that, we're less likely to binge or overdo it, or maybe even just giving yourself permission to do something allows you to stop and think and ask yourself, do I even want this?
I think for me, I applied it in a different way. It was actually it was in regards to boundaries in general. And I didn't realize that I was going through some situations where I allowed myself to feel uncomfortable in a situation. And if you guys hear the dogs, they're fighting on the couch. And so that word for me, or that sentence, "you deserve to feel good," allowed me then to be in a situation where I felt uncomfortable. And it was so easy to create a boundary. It was so easy to say, actually, no, thank you. I'm not comfortable with that.
Wow.
Because I realized that I deserve to feel good. I don't need to make myself feel uncomfortable for somebody else, especially a man, right? Like I don't need to accept other people's behavior that makes me feel bad just to people please and make them feel good. Like I deserve to feel good and you deserve to feel good. And we can communicate about that and we can come together on that. Or if that requires us to not be around each other, then great. But I no longer, like from that point on, allowed myself to feel uncomfortable.
Wow. Yeah,
that's very empowering for me.
Big shift. Holy shit.
Yeah. Because then I would find myself in situations where even with like strangers, you know, being out at a bar and like a guy crossing a boundary, not in a big way.
Or our experience whenever we went to Slander.
Yes.
So we went to Slander and there was a group of guys. Well, one, we couldn't see anything. We couldn't see over the people's heads. We were just trying to see the DJ. And so this group of guys asked if we wanted to join their table. We're like, oh, sure. And they immediately started crossing boundaries. And you were very good at being like, absolutely not. No, sir. And I was feeling vulnerable. And I'd be like, please don't do that. Or I wouldn't say anything and I would just walk away and hope they didn't do it again.
Do you remember what I said in the bathroom though?
What did you say?
Did you
say you deserve to feel good?
You deserve to feel good.
Yeah.
I remember going to the bathroom and seeing you look uncomfortable.
And I go, let's go. When you said that, I gave myself permission to say, can we just not go back? And you're like, yeah.
It's like, fuck yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a lesson that we all have to go through. And it's very empowering when we can be there to remind each other too, right? Like you should never be feeling uncomfortable. You should never be making yourself small or, right? Like you should take up your space and be comfortable and even protect your space. And you get to say what's comfortable and what's good for you and what's not. You know, and for me, it's almost like, try me, bro. You know, I'm kind of like, if they do something and I say, I'm not comfortable with that, thank you. It's very respectful.
And however, if they do it again,
they are fucked.
But listen to this. What that does too is that takes you out of the victim mentality of someone else is crossing my boundaries versus I'm not upholding boundaries. It's on me to decide I get to feel good versus everything happening to me.
So good. Way to wrap that up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I really hope people understood what you just said. That's everything, right? Because it really is that victim mindset. Wow, these things always happen to me. It's like, no, you are a whole human being.
You get to set your boundaries.
Yes. And speak your truth and say what's okay for you and what's not. And I feel like that's part of being the healed, empowered feminine versus the wounded feminine.
Yes. Yeah, that's huge. But it's funny because that phrase came up with something so simple for me. I was in competition prep And when I'm in, everyday life, I do a lot of these things. But when I'm in prep, I get in this headspace where I feel like I'm on a mission. I have this long laundry list of things to do every day, waking up at the ass crack of dawn, at the gym 4 hours a day. And I'm still trying to get in a 6 to 8 hour work day, make time for other people, read, journal, meditate, be outside, walk my dog, play with my dog, etc. But I get in this headspace of I gotta go. And I feel good and I feel empowered. Before, when I would prep, I would be in that victim mentality and I would be like, I'm hungry, I'm tired. Why? Now this. I'm going to be so busy today. And I really shifted. And now it's the same exact amount of shit, if not more. But I look at it, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. Bring it on.
Yeah.
But what I was experiencing was at the end of the day, I would be driving home from the gym and I would just put on Netflix in the car. And I wouldn't be watching it, but I put on Friends. I've watched Friends probably 13 times.
Yeah.
I don't need to see it to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I know exactly what happens in every episode. So I just put on Netflix and I'm driving home from the gym, listening to Netflix, and I get home and I'm still listening to the episode while I make my food. And then I put it on TV and I'm watching another episode while I'm watching TV. And I was talking to them and I was like, I'm distracting. I feel like I should be listening to a podcast. I feel like I should be listening to an audiobook. I feel like I should be doing something. I wasn't allowing myself to do anything that wasn't productive. In my mind, productive. And Celeste was like, and maybe it was Grant, I don't know.
Yeah.
They're like, you can watch Netflix.
Yeah.
You're allowed to watch Netflix.
Yeah.
And I was like, really?
It makes sense though, because in that state, in especially the bodybuilding state, right, it's a lot of your masculine energy that's taking the primary focus.
Yeah.
So it's like your masculine energy was like, we have to be doing and we have to be productive and we have to get something out of this, versus the feminine that's okay with just being and there not being an end goal.
That doesn't even have to be competition prep. I feel like a lot of women just operate in the masculine everyday.
Oh, for sure.
I think most of us do or have in the past.
Yeah.
I think it's just part of conditioning now or programming that we, just have to go and be productive all the time. And the funny part is a lot of times we still, even though we create this story that we're not allowed to relax, we still do it anyways. We just feel guilty about it. So,
I love my sleep these days. I'll even take a nap on a Tuesday. Like, I'm just really enjoying my beingness, my slowness. I meditate as long as I want to meditate.
Yeah. The sleep thing, I saw this TikTok. So it's obviously credible, valid source.
The most valid source ever.
But the sleep studies that have been done, or the major sleep study that was trying to say that humans need 8 hours of sleep per night. There was no women in that study. And we actually need 9 to 10.
So I've been down this whole like biohacking path for a couple of years now, but like even more so in the last year or so. And that was one thing that really empowered me to really live my life as a woman. Because all these studies typically don't have women in them. And our bodies, if you really look at our cycles and the way that we operate, it's so different than men. And so I find it's like the most loving thing in the world is to learn your body, learn your cycles, learn where your hormones are at throughout the month, and to actually work with your body and not against it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I know. Okay. Well, what are you excited about this year? You're in competition prep right now. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah, I experienced this with all of my recent preps where I ease into it. And then I think when I start seeing my body change, something flips and then I'm in prep mode.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But right now I've just been very slowly losing like a pound or 2 a month for the last several months and just living my life. Like I was just in Tahoe for 3 weeks, didn't track my food one day.
Wow.
Didn't hit my protein goal one day. Didn't drink more than like 3/4 of a gallon every day. Yeah. So I was just really off of my shit, but I was super active and I lost a little bit of weight, but I wasn't stressing about it. And whenever I would eat, oh my gosh, my sister eats so many cookies and she's in phenomenal shape. So I'm like, oh, she can do it. I can do it. So I'm fucking shoveling cookies and like candy.
Gosh, yeah.
And granted, we're snowboarding every day. And and also the Airbnb had 88 steps. There's no elevator. So
88?
88.
You counted.
Well, it's in the Airbnb ad.
Oh, okay.
You have to be in shape to stay in this Airbnb.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Anyone that's even remotely out of shape is going to hate living there.
That makes sense.
Because we got to take our dogs out 3 times a day. And then we would go up and down to snowboard. And then we'd probably go up and down for one other thing. Yeah. Whether it's grocery store or I'd go to the gym some days. So 88 times 10.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Just going up and down the stairs. So anyways, eating lots of cookies, not drinking enough water, whatever. And I ended up, my body responded okay. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it was just not stressing about it and just being okay with it. Mm-hmm. And now I was thinking, when I come back from that, I'm going to go into prep and then I'll be ready. Then I'll be ready to go all in, flip that switch. But the first weekend of the month, I was traveling home from Tahoe. And then this weekend, Candace is actually going to be here in a couple hours.
Fun.
Yeah, her and Bryce. It's his birthday.
Yeah.
Next weekend is Jen's competition in Vegas. I'm going to be driving there. And the following weekend, I'm going to Anaheim for my client Claire's competition. Justin flies in right before that. And then we're road tripping halfway across the country so I can move.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll just visit you. So yeah, let's talk about that to wrap up the podcast. We have just under 5 minutes or so left here.
Oh, okay.
But let's talk about your move. And so you're moving from San Diego to Austin with your new relationship, Justin Lovato, who he's been on the show before. We've been friends for years. So my audience probably knows of him at least.
Yeah, you introduced us.
Yes, I love that. I get credit for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what's funny is when I introduced you guys, I was like, this is Gina, one of my favorite humans ever. And this is Justin, one of my favorite souls ever.
You didn't even call him a human.
Yeah, I didn't even call him a human. No, definitely not. That's long gone.
Yeah.
And so I have not gotten to experience you guys together yet. And I think I'm going to actually like spontaneously combust and explode because I'm going to be so excited.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, talk to me about this life transition and what you're excited for. Are there nerves even?
No, there really aren't. Like it's funny because he asked me if I was going to miss the ocean. Yeah. For people that don't know, I mean, actually, they probably know because we live together. Yeah. I literally live on the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's the most beautiful thing. And I probably have one of the best views in San Diego. And I go to one of the best gyms in the country. I think it's fucking awesome. And you're here. And but one of the first things he asked was when we decided to move in together, he's like, are you going to miss the ocean? I was like, I don't think so. No, I'm not even sad to leave the ocean. No, I'm just so excited. I feel like I'm just running towards something in the next chapter in my life. And there's just so much excitement and love and passion that, I'm sure there's some underlying fears, subconscious fears, but I feel like the positive emotions are just overpowering to where they're just not in my experience. I'm not aware of anything other than excitement.
I don't think there are underlying like subconscious fears.
I feel like I convince myself sometimes
that there are, or that there should be.
That it's normal to, so why wouldn't there be?
Totally. That's why I hear you saying that. And I'm like, I actually feel like there's not, just because I've felt your energy and presence the whole time. And it's been so still and so present and so grounded. Even last night when I saw you and I asked, oh my gosh, how are you? You haven't seen Justin in like a month. And you're just so calm and peaceful. And you're like, yeah, I'm great. And it's been amazing. Like we talk and I just love your energy. And I think someone's energy says a lot when they start dating somebody. So I'm excited for you in your new chapter.
Thank you. Yeah. I think one of the biggest shifts for this relationship, and I had experienced it once before, but I really like this saying where if it's right, you will know. And if it's not, you'll be confused.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or you could apply that to a lot of women experience this. Like, does he actually like me? Does he actually want to date me? If he does, you'll know. He'll make it known.
So true.
If he doesn't, you'll be confused.
That's so true.
Yeah. And so since the beginning, there's just been this very deep knowing. And that has been the most amazing feeling ever. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to follow y'all's journey. Please get the guest room ready.
Yes. It's ready. It's ready for you.
Already?
It's got your name on it.
Okay, we'll get settled because I'm coming to Austin, Texas.
Yes.
I'm going to do a podcast tour, actually.
Ooh.
So I'll have to interview you guys together.
Oh my gosh.
On the show.
That would be amazing.
I can't wait.
I can't wait.
Thank you so much.
I love you.
Show. I love you. Guys, thanks for listening, watching. Go follow Gina. Her stuff's below. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.